Are you on page number 42?
법을 수행하는 수행자들에게 가장 큰 걸림돌은
For those who practice asceticism, the biggest obstacle is agony and delusion. So the biggest goal is to remove agony and delusion from our life.
무슨 단식을 하고 생식을 하고 또 산에 가서 뭐 몇십 년, 40년, 50년 살고 그렇게 하는 형식은 별 의미가 없어요. 그러니까
the form that we go to the mountain and practice natural diet for 30 to 40 years, it does not have so much meaning. Our hardship should not be the aim for our goal. When you say the goal of our life is earning money, then if that person is able to earn all the money that he wanted, then is it that his goal is achieved? The goal of ascetic practice does not get achieved just because you go to a mountain and live there for a long time. Even if we just have a meal a day, and if we are not able to do the meditation for that reason, we should rethink about it, because those people who live in Africa, even if they cannot have a meal a day, they do practice their ascetic practice very well. So you should think about it again. The goal for our practice is to remove the agony of life. But what is agony? A lot of Korean people, they think that agony is the feeling where your head feels a little distorted, but and they think it's caused by various reasons in our daily life, but it's caused by greediness and also your desire for something else. So if you do not get rid of this kind of feelings, then even if you go to monasteries for thousands of years, it will have no meaning, because all the sufferings are caused by this. Removing all the suffering is also when we say when we do meditation, it means we are going to remove all the greediness and all the desire from our heart. So the biggest obstacle is agony and delusion. But agony and delusion is not the obstacle, but it's the essence that we have to get rid of. When we say it's obstacle, we tend to think there's something else, but removing itself is deep ascetic practice. So when we say Buddha is someone who is free from all the agony and all the desire and all the greediness of life. We call those who are free from all the desires of life Buddha. There's a reason that this feeling does not disappear if you practice Hinayana. If you Ananta, the delusion caused by consciousness disappear, but it does not disappear in unconsciousness. So it's not enough with that, and just because we are not able to go further, we practice the Mahayana. If it's possible by Hinayana, then what is the need for mentioning it again in Mahayana?
무슨 뭐 가서 어디 수련대에
So when we say when we do a certain
좀
practice,
조용해지고 근데 욕심을 근원적으로 버리는 것이 아니면 조용해지면 더 욕심을 버리냐?
doesn't mean
욕심이
we gain some peace of mind
생생하게 버리죠.
by going to some seminar. But if you try to throw away all your greeds, then sometimes this greediness becomes a little more
수련대에도 가고 그렇게 하는 것이지.
sensitive. So we should try to remove all the greediness from our heart.
그거는 내 탐욕심이 사라지거든. 또 우리가 법을 베풀 때도 법질이 사라져요.
When we contribute to someone, then our greediness disappears.
얘기를 하면 방법을 얘기하는데 그게 자꾸 얘기하다 보면
If I talk the right way to all other sentient beings, then
안 되거든.
if I do not tell them the right way, it doesn't work out.
얘기를 갖다 해주는데 그 방법이라는 것이 결국 부처님께서 말씀하신 방법은 전부 다 번뇌를
So I need to tell them the right way, and the right way is getting rid of all the greediness and also over the agony of life. If you do not get rid of them, then you should not even say you are the disciple of Buddha, and it is not beneficial at all.
가장 큰 목표가 아니라 가장 큰 목표 뭐 작은 목표 그런 거 따질 것 없이 모든 목표가 수행의 목표는 거기에 있다. 불법을
It's not the biggest goal. It's wrong to say it's biggest goal, but that's the main goal.
그 번뇌를 다해서 깨달음에 들어갈 수 있는 법이라는 것은 오로지 탐욕심을 다하는 것이다. 이렇게 이제 항상 그 머릿속에
The only way to enter enlightenment is by getting rid of all the greediness of life.
실제 이게 내 욕심을 갖다 사라지게 하는 것인가 관찰해 보면 욕심을 사라지게 하는 것이 아니다 그러면 그건 좀 다 삿된 법이다 그런 얘기예요. 내가 이제 수없이 많이 얘기했지만
by doing certain practice, if your greediness does not disappear, then that's a wrong practice.
그거는 아무리 해도 욕심이 점점 많아지지 줄어들지를 않는다고 말이야. 그러니까 그건 수행이라고 하질 않는다. 아무리 절을 갖다가 10만 배, 100만 배, 1000만 배로 하더라도.
So a wrong practice we do not call proper ascetic practice because your greediness doesn't disappear. If you go to temple for blessing, then that means you are doing a wrong practice. There is no benefit by going to a temple. If I say something like this, then since a lot of people in the world, they are not very strong, they want to be consoled. But this kind of painkiller, this is like a painkiller. It's only beneficial at the time that you're looking for, but then eventually you'll be facing the same problem. So a scholar in Western world, he said religion is like a drug.
그래서 이제 이거는 근원적으로 내가 편안해지려 그러면 내 욕심이 많으면 많아질수록 편치가 않아요.
So if you want to be free, if you want to have comfort, then the lesser your greediness is, you're very more comfortable. Even nowadays, the reason why all the disease gets more complex and more in number is because the society itself is getting a little more complicated. So when we say agony and delusion, these are the feelings that cause all three sins. And the biggest goal is to get free from this agony and delusion. It's a simple fact that all the sufferings begins from those.
장가갈 때까지 살면 어쩌고 저쩌고 곧다운 소리 했었지만 그거는 착각한 이유일 뿐이고 왜 사느냐고 그럼 장가갈 손주가 없으면
Although we say our happiness might last if I see my grandchildren but you do not die because you do not have your grandchildren. You do not know why you are living, and you do not know what is the cause of your greediness. You just have that greediness because you think you feel unhappy if you do not have them. But
생자나무를 심어놓고 유자가 달릴 거라고 생각하느냐? 삿된 짓을 생자나무 심으면서 유자가 달릴 것이라고 생각을.
It's almost like if you plant a mandarin tree and you expect lemon.
삿된 생각이거든. 그러면서도 그렇게 하고서 뒤에 유자가 안 달리면 성질이 난단 말이에요.
That thought is something that is not helpful, but you think about those things and you expect happiness. That's where all the suffering begins from. And the worst thing is, although all our suffering is caused from them, we live expecting those things in our life. And although change is very instant, that's why in Diamond Sutra,
마치 물거품 같고 불 끝에 이슬 같고 그렇게 왔다가 순간적으로 사라지는 것이다.
we say it's like a bubble in the water. It's like a flame. They disappear in an instant.
또 어느 시간이 지나면 지구도 우주의 먼지로 전부 다 변할 거란 말이야. 우주의 먼지로 변하고.
Although we say Earth has been existing for so long, after some time, the Earth will also disappear as a dust in the universe. And all the dust from the universe, they will also fall on Mars and everywhere else. When we think about Earth, we think it's a long time, but when you compare it to the universe, it's not a time that has been so long. So if you are not aware that these things only last for instants, we tend to be obsessed by it. If someone troubles you, then you tend to shed tears or you tend to scream. But all the external enemies are only caused by your reincarnation of this life. Although this is saying of Dalai Lama, this is also in the way to Bodhisattva. When we say enemy, the enemies tend to attack us, but the enemy does not attack us throughout our life. And also sometimes the relation gets intermingled or by your death or his death. Are you sleepy? I thought you were sleepy, so you're yawning in that way. You have very bright eyes. Do you understand what I'm saying?
이게 이제 전생에 오랫동안 공부를 한 사람은 지금 이 나이에도 딱 들어봐 안다고. 그 생이지 한다. 태어나면서 한다.
These people who studied a lot, then even at this age, they will know as a reincarnation, they will know what I mean. When they're playing piano, like I haven't taught him before, but he just listened to it and he plays it. You know, there are kids who does that at the age of 5 or 6 or 7. They were pianists in their previous life. But you know, as for us, although they teach us every time and we forget each time, we think we didn't study hard in our previous life. I think we just went around praying for our blessing. But there is a chance you might understand, so you should listen carefully. How old are you? 10 years? If you're a dog, then you're already above 60.
실제로 환갑
Dogs
넘었으니까
die at the age of 13
충분히
or
알아.
14,
그래.
so you're above 60,
그지?
so you should be able to understand,
에,
right?
그러니까 외부의 적은 우리가 일생에 한 생에 그것도 엇갈리는 순간에서 잠시 만나는 것이
So the external enemy
이 적은 이 욕심이라고
is someone that you meet for a short period of time when the fate gets intermingled, but agony stays with you for throughout your life, but you're not aware of it. You think it's a family because you're born together with it, but
다가오면 그 욕심이 원인인 줄 잘 모르고 무엇 때문에 그랬을까? 집에 있는 나무를 비워서
But when the suffering comes, you are not aware that the cause of this suffering is agony, but you wonder, is it because of that tree planted in your house, or is it because of the land god, or
땅받기를 안 해서 귀신들이 송신해서 그럴까?
is it because you did not have a housing ceremony when you built the house, or
자기가 그 고통이
but in reality, it's that you planted the seed and you have acted in a way to obtain the suffering, the fruit of suffering. But we always give excuses on somewhere else.
적은 나를 고통스럽게 하는 적은 내한테서
So our enemy is so the enemy that makes us suffer arises 99.9% from myself. It is not caused from somewhere else. So
적인 번뇌망상은 분명 다음 생까지 이어지는 화근입니다. 실제로는 이 번뇌망상의
but our internal enemy, agony and delusion is the worst enemy in of our life, which could also be carried on until our next life. We have to fight with the anger that arises from us. We have to fight with the agony and delusion that's arising from us, and the constant thought of wanting to get rid of those greediness is the life that you have to live, but you do not know that fact, and instead you become friends with anger, you become friends with delusion, and also friends with enemy, friends with agony. It's almost like putting yourself in the burning oil or putting yourself into a hell. There's no difference in that. So you should be aware of things, or aware of these things. For those who practice asceticism, the real inspection, the training of yourself begins from those who check if you possess them and also getting rid of them. So you should be aware that you possess, or whether that is a delusion or whether that's agony of life. If that is putting you into suffering, you should have the proper awareness. If you do not understand, or if you do not remember the teachings of Buddha, then all the suffering will arise, and as the suffering arises, this will repeat, putting you into a torture. When the agony and delusion reduces, then your ascetic practice progresses as well. The decrease in agony and delusion, your ability to differentiate them means your study has already progressed well enough. If you are not able to identify them, then and claim to have gotten enlightenment, then that is a nonsense. Because in Korean Buddhism, we do not learn these kinds of scripts in an organized manner. We are not aware which is what.
다 세밀하게 구분해서 했어야지.
So when you're, for example, when you're trying to construct a house, you should be able to identify which is the pillar, which is the roof, which is the wall. If you do not have a proper understanding, then if you put the roof to the pillar and the pillar to the wall, do you think the house will be able to build?
재료는 뭐고 그죠?
You should be able to identify them specifically. Even when you're cooking, you should be able to know what is the main ingredient of this food.
생태를 가지고 생태탕을 끓이면 생태탕 그러지.
And also by using the main dish, you name the dish.
소금탕 안 하죠? 그다음에 간장탕.
If you make a fish soup, you do not say it's a salt soup by putting a little bit of salt, but we call that fish soup.
소스 양념이죠.
There are spices to be used. There are sauce like.
그렇게 해서 구분을 해서
But prior to that, you have a main ingredient and you also have side ingredients.
해서 생태탕을 끓이는데 거기에
So, with the awareness of each of them,
양념을 뭐를 뒤에 넣으면
you already know what is the main ingredient, and on top of that, what are the things that you have to put, and also the order of cooking.
파하고 이런 거 한꺼번에 다 넣어버려요?
Okay, when you make a fish sauce, do you put all the sauces together? Do you put everything together, like even the vegetables for garnish?
집에
Everything has an order.
숟가락부터 올리고
Even when you're building a house. Without pillar, you cannot put a roof. No, right?
만약에 너 이발소 갔는데 이발소 그 언니 누나가 말이야.
For example, you want to cut your hair.
머리를 깎으면 될까? 그리고
Do you think it's okay if she washes your hair first and cut your hair?
말려가 그다음에 이제 머리카락을 깎으면 그다음에 또 감아야 되지 그지? 그렇게 엉터리 짓을 갖다 하면 안 된다.
If you wash your hair prior to cutting your hair, then what happens? You have to wash your hair again, right? You should not do something that is useless.
뒤에 그다음에는
So identifying the study of Buddhism initially, and what comes next, and finally what do you have to do, you should be able to say the proper order.
인테리어부터 하면요. 나중에 집 올릴 때 흙이 다 뒤쳐가지고 다 못 쓰게 돼.
For example, when you're building a house in a wrong order,
집이 좀 주저.
then the house will be of no use later, even if you do a proper interior of the house.
위에 그렇게 해서
If the house falls down, then everything in the house also falls down.
그런 거 다 순서대로 세속살이도 다 순서대로.
It's just that we wait until everything falls down. Even our common life has order. Like when you're wearing a clothes in the morning, which one did you wear first? Did you wear your underpants first, or did you wear your pants first? It's a little bit embarrassing to say, but what did you wear first? Is it someone Superman wears pants first and then he wears his underwear outside?
그 몰라? 그렇게 안에 옷도 이게 입는 순서가 있는데 하물며
Like that.
예전에 둘이 뭉치를
Even clothes have order to wear.
우리 남에
But
그런 그 거지가 하나 있어. 연도라는 거지가 있어. 내가 맨날 얘기해. 근데 그 연도라는 거지는 항상
there was a beggar in Name. His name was Yeondu.
그러니까 이제 이게 잠바 위에다가
He always begged for clothes, but he always wore them as we gave them. So, on top of the jacket, he would wear sleeveless. So, sometimes what has to be inside comes out. Had awesome sense of fashion.
그런데도 이제 그런 절차와 순서라는 것을 갖다 항상
So when we say even when we practice ascetic practice, it's good to say if you have a proper order.
자기 역량에 따라서 스승의 지도를 받아가면서 하나하나 이렇게 하는 것이 굉장히
The
중요하다.
platform should be strong, and until the very end, you should follow the teacher's instruction.
외적으로 얼마나 근심하고 성스러워 보이냐 한 그것과는 상관이 없습니다.
This is the point where you decide the actual practitioner. It is not important what is said outside or inside.
보살들도 보면 어떻게 끝으로 그렇게 따라가려고 그래. 아마 석자사 신도는 내가 그렇게 못하게.
When we look at those bodhisattvas or monks, there are sometimes believers who try to follow everything. Like just like monks, they wear same costume and they comb their hair. And just because you have that same shape, does it mean all your greediness disappear and you practice? But those who follow this kind of shape, only the shape, then they will know emptiness later. The outer shape, or you should be able to see what arises from your heart. And you should check if your greediness is disappearing.
내가 이제 예를 자주 들면 우리 대도 조세영 씨 같은 사람이 대도둑이야. 도둑인데 그걸 갖다 껍데기로 목사를 만들어 놨다고.
For example, the great thief Cho Se-young, but he became a monk outside. Like he was a monk externally, but internally he had the sense of thief inside. So he became a priest who was a thief. There should be change arising from inner hurt, but the change was not caused. So once some said, nowadays they do plastic surgery in order to look pretty. And I told them the law of nature, the natural law doesn't change. Even if you do plastic surgery to increase the to make your stomach to make your nose high, because of the low blood circulation, sometimes your complexion turns blue. Because you are not able to do a surgery, they walk like that. Tell your girlfriend not to have a plastic surgery later. You are going to give her a freedom to do what she likes. You're not going to care. She might ask for money. She might ask for money for the surgery. You're going to ask her to earn her money and use. What about your mom? You're not going to let your mom do, and as for your girlfriend, you're going to let her do what she wants.
그러니까 수행자다라고 하는 것은 뭐냐면 점점 그 사람을 보니까 욕심이 점점 줄어들어간다.
When you say he is a practitioner, then that means looking at him, you know that he is getting less greedy each time, and also he's losing his temper to somewhat extent. And before, when he prayed, he was expecting for a blessing, but nowadays he does not say that. But instead he says that the blessing cannot be achieved through those means. Or this even foolishness of himself disappear. That we call someone who practices asceticism and someone who studies. But we do not say those who dress well or dress like those monks or priests. In some superstitious religions, they make this kind of teaching table high so that, and they wear a very big hat, and throughout their speech they do not speak about any grace, but
아이고 한 줄 잊어버렸네.
but they are like to the ladies and gentlemen present here, oh, it's raining and you forgot a line.
감사합니다. 이런 얘기 안에 얘기 내용을 따르면 이 얘기가 무슨 그냥
All they speak about is their gratitude for those attendees. Sometimes it's worse than the pamphlets that stuck on the wall in the university.
그 옷을 입고 막 높이 올라가지고 신도들이라고 보면 신도들은 한 100명 앉아 있는데 그냥 높이 올라가가지고 신도들이 목고개 기구서게끔 이렇게 해서 보게끔.
Sometimes those preachers, they are just sitting in an area that's so high.
한심스럽다고. 그러니까 외부 조건이 아닙니다. 그래 무슨 뭐 아이고.
These kind of things, for me, it looks pathetic. So the external condition is not important. Oh, that monk is very intelligent. He went to Harvard University. You cannot say just because he graduated from Harvard, he's not a proper monk. He's
말이야 그 전부 다 사기치고 앉았고 전 세계 돈 다 쭈물떡 다 하고 거짓말하고 앉았고 온갖 사기 다 치고 앉았고.
All these intelligent people, they sit on the Wall Street and sometimes they only cheat and they control the money of the whole world. They are the cheaters. How much do they play with money?
한 2천억 달러인가 얼마 2조 달러인가 얼마 갖다 풀어버렸어. 그러니까
Because they had some problem, what did they do? They released something like $20 billion, and what happens? That caused more problem than making fake dollars in North Korea, from North Korea.
그런 외부적인 조건은 아무것도 없어요. 그러니까
This kind of external condition is not important. So when you say he's a monk, then what is the condition of becoming a monk? We say it's those who is trying hard to release themselves from the greed. When you say, I want to get rid of my greed, it does not work properly. The best way is giving or contributing to others, and we call that contribution. We call that 보시 in Korean. When you say, oh, that looks holy, and also in some religious centers, they think having a proper ceremony is important. So sometimes they have like a choir, and sometimes it makes you feel like really there was a severe coming. It's almost like someone who is taking drugs feel that we are flying or floating out in the air. So those practitioners, you should not be concentrating on those outer factors which seem like it's being holy or other, and also those grace. And also, this kind of although at times you might say that it looks very graceful by going to the temple and eating this barley rice, but just because they symbolize this poverty or not having so much, does not mean it's a grace.
안 깨끗하면 그 사람도 죽으면 이게 구데기가 일로 다 기어다녀. 깨끗하면 구데기가 왜 일로 기어?
They might say that I live a very natural life and that I do not eat forced things, but even that person, when he dies, is going to suffer the same. The essence, the main essence, whether you are able to get rid of your greed. On top of that, if you're able to, on top of that, there lies the grace, but there's no grace in your external appearance.
이게 성스럽다 그랬으면 저 위에 막 그냥 그려놨었어요.
When you say it's holy,
비행기를 타고 하늘로 올라가 보니까 구름이 밑에 있잖아, 그죠? 구름이 밑에 있어. 비행기 타고 올라가 보면 구름이 요 밑에 있어.
when I was on plane, the clouds were beneath me.
뽕뽕 뚫려가지고 위에 햇빛이 쫙 내리가면 쫙 밑에까지 비치잖아요, 그죠?
And the holes in the clouds and the sun rays, they pass through the clouds and they get shone. In olden times, they would say the Holy Father and Mother, they're shining their rays on. They're shining the rays, and sometimes if they're standing there out in the ray with a big stick, does it mean that he or she, or sometimes even the monks with the wrong stick, do you think they're holy? It's nothing holy. Then it's even less holy than going to the kitchen and making a fire. Holiness does not lie in clothes, and holiness does not lie in the great posture. If there's holiness in here, then you just have to hang this and prostrate in front of it. There's no holiness in this.
수행의 모든 목적은 우리 마음의 번뇌망성을 줄이는 것이며 결국 뿌리째 뽑아야 하는 것이다. 수행이라는 것은 목적이 뭐냐면 우리 마음의 요 탐진치 삼독심을 갖다 없애는 것이.
And also, the main purpose of our practice is to reduce the greediness and delusion in our life, even those which lies in our unconsciousness. It is same when you are treating cancer, when you do theology and survive.
그러면 생명체는 우리 몸은 살아날 그런 거 마찬가지란 말이에요. 넓고 심오한 가르침을 듣고 수행함으로써 수행자는 무아에 대한 수행과 친근해지고.
We keep saying the absence of I or selflessness, but what is selflessness and absence of I? There is me who is changing all the time, but there is no me who is not there. Or there is no me who is absent. You will come to know them throughout life, and you keep living, and you will also feel them in more deep. We are listening to teaching, so it's necessary to know what is effective way to listen. Here, there are three things that the listener has to believe. The first one is you need to listen with some. You should not listen like a bowl that is not sitting properly. That is upturned. So those people who are very proud, they have very strong sense of I, and they are. It's almost like you inside is already filled with so much water, but you try to fill with something more. There is a very bad habit. Those people, they will not be able to listen to they will be not able to listen to this teaching throughout this
그래서
life.
뭐 얘기해놨네. 이것은 몸은 가르침은 듣는 상소했지만 마음은 다른 곳에 분주한 것을 말합니다. 그렇게도 얘기했네. 그러니까
This means your body is present here, but your consciousness is
또
absent.
이제 여기 있으면서 여기서 가만 여기 몸은 여기 앉혀놓고
This also means your body is sitting here, but
얘기하네. 그래놓고 앉아 여기
he's already talking about something that will let you know. And
용자가 개돈을 이번 달 내었던 거 안 냈던
did she pay money this month? Something like this.
이번에 제주도를 가기로 했는데
I'm planning a trip to Jeju this time,
내 돈을 다 내라 그랬어.
but my husband is not paying his money, but he's asking me to pay for everything. You think of those various things of life.
다 먹었을까?
Oh, is my son in Seoul? Did he eat all the kimchi?
그러니까 뭐 그러면
You're sit here thinking about these things. Then it's almost like I'm having a teaching for the with the dead bodies in front of me. So you should not act like an upturned glass or bowl. Actually, honestly, when someone is giving us a teaching, we do not listen to everything in detail. Maybe it's because we do not have interest, or maybe it's because we think we know everything. But that's obviously a big obstacle in our learning.
내가 그 법회 볼 때도 나는 그런 것을 갖다 일체 허용을 안 했던 것이 왜냐면 이거 우리 전에는
The reason why I never allowed this kind of thing, even when I had my teaching, was because
이번에 뭐 상점을 하나 열었으니까 거기 좀 가서 많이 깔아주시오. 그러면 그 사람은 이제 여기 와서 그 얘기할 때는 앉아 있겠지. 그러면
No, the reason why I never did them was like when the people who came to our temples and they were expecting us to or me to pray for them, then if their motive gets fulfilled, then they don't come here anymore. So it doesn't matter what's your job or what condition are you there, but you should when you are sitting here, you should lay down everything and you should only meet Buddha's teachings as they are. And this moment where you are meeting the Buddha's teaching as they are, it's a chance where it changes your life, and it's a time where it makes you, it opens a door for you to the new horizon. It's almost like
챙이라고 그러는 남의 말로 챙이라 그랬는데 올챙이처럼 생겼다 챙이 키란 말이 키. 예? 요걸 갖다 안에다 깨를 틀어가지고 이렇게 까불면 말이야. 이게 하면 이 알맹이는 안으로 속 들어오고 쭉쟁이는 이렇게 나가지 그죠?
You know, there's this traditional Korean instrument that is not instrument equipment that is used to use after harvesting in order to clear the seed. What happens when you use them? You should practice just the way they do. When you shake it, the rice stays within, and the other dust they get flown away.
가르침에 관심을 가지고 꼭 참석을 해야 된다. 그러니까
this will be a great obstacle for learning, so you should not have other thoughts, but should be able to concentrate in teaching. Second one is listening like a bowl that has a hole. It refers to the time when you listen to the practice but you do not remember them, but you forget afterwards. And this also means you should be able to use them properly and remember them properly without teaching. This also refers to the means to improve and practice the proper way of life. So when you're listening, you should be able to pay attention.
얘기를 듣긴 들었는데 우리 듣는데
So
이렇습니다.
this is like
여러분이
you have
얘기를
actually
듣는데
heard.
지금 내 얘기를 다 듣는 것 같아도 사실은 안
Although
들어요.
it seems like you are listening
반찬을
to
상에
me,
10개를 올려놓은 것
maybe
같으면
you are not listening
콩깍지를 위에
completely.
10개에 다 가는 게
Although
절대
it seems
아니에요.
like I have 10
지금
dishes on
여러분에게
the
맞는
table,
것만 딱
it's
받아들인다고. 안 맞는
you
거는
do not take
지금
everything.
분명히
You only
소리를
take
듣고는
in what you
앉았지만도
think is suitable for you.
그 듣고 나면
Although you are
기억할 수
sitting
있어요.
here listening to them, after end of the teaching, there's nothing that
여러분
stays in your
스펙 딱
memory.
여러분 입맛에 딱 맞는 것만 듣게 돼 있어요.
So we
그럼에도
tend to
불구하고
listen
그게
to something that
계속 그릇에 물
we feel comfortable or we like.
잘 기억을 하지
Then that
못한다고.
becomes like pouring water
여러분
into
지금
a broken glass.
듣고서 요 녹화해서 인터넷에 올려놓은 걸 다시 한번 봐보십시오. 얼마나 저 얘기를 했던가?
After
그렇게까지
you
얘기하는
finish
게
this,
많아요.
listen once again to this recorded teaching. Sometimes there are so many things that you might feel like, oh, did he even say something like this? So although you listen, you forget.
법회 끝나고 제사 다 끝나고 빗자루 가지고 쓰레바지 가지고 그 보살님들 간 뒤에 한번 따라가면서 썰어 담아보자. 법문이 주룩 떨어져 있어 길바닥에.
Okay, you and I, let's follow all these bodhisattvas when they go home, and let's try to sweep. All the teachings are thrown all the way out in the ground.
오늘 쓰레바지 가지고 둘이 청소로 가자.
Let's go to clean today.
그러니까 이건 지금 법문을 듣는 것은 무슨 지식을 배우려고 하는 것이 아니고
So the act of listening to teaching is not an act to gain wisdom, but
기억을 정확하게 하지 않으면
it is.
안 돼요.
So if you do not remember, then it's not proper because we are learning the way to change ourselves.
기억이 안 돼버리면 그 기억이
If you
안
do not
돼버리면
remember, then you cannot change. And if you cannot remember, you should try to remember by looking at them or reading the books once again. When you're sitting down together and talking about Buddha's teaching, it means we remember them. If the Buddha's teaching is being spoken out together while your normal speeches, that means you do remember what Buddha has taught you. So in order to find the benefits of teaching, then you should listen carefully, and there's a footnote says it has a different meaning to the normal memory. Buddha has said that this means you are always awakened with a proper consciousness for others.
듣고 읽는 등의 모든 배움의 과정에서는 확실한 집중력으로 그 내용을 기억하는 것이 꼭 필요하다.
It's very important to remember everything with a proper remembrance. And
반만 기억할 것입니다.
if your interest is only half, then you will remember only half of them, and moreover, they wouldn't last long. So you should think about what you learned again and again. So even when you are walking out on the street, you should try to remind yourself of what you have learned today. And that becomes a source of change in your daily life.
그러면 그 내용과 의미가 마음속에 오래도록 남을 수 있으니까 가르침을 기억하는 또 다른 방법은 전통적인 티벳 성사하는 것과 같은 논리학인 학습.
So remembering the other way to remember what you have learned is a traditional Tibetan way.
이게 이제 그 토론 형식입니다.
It's that's like a debate.
요거는 이제 어떻게 하느냐면 우리나라는 그렇게 하고 있지 않기 때문에 문제가 자꾸 이제 불거지는데.
The problem arises because we do not practice this in Korea. But when we have a debate,
원인과 조건과 그러니까 어떤 그 결과라는 논지를 세웠을 때 그것은 무엇으로 원인이고 무엇이 조건이 되는가를 갖다 따져 나가는 거예요. 토론을.
It's arguing what becomes the reason or what becomes the cause for the change.
을 해야만이 그냥 내가 적당히 이럴 것이다라고 얘기를 못 해요. 그 이럴 것이다라는
You
것은
cannot
어디에 근거
say
얘기를 하면
this could
근거를 대야
be
돼요. 그것도 근거를 대는데 뭐 건강증이
this
나오는데
could be
이렇게
because
하지
of
않아요.
this reason, but you should be able to say
나오는데
where from where you have gotten the idea. You should remember exactly where in Diamond Sutra, or you should be able to say which sutra, on which page it's, the evidence is there. Then only you will have power to convince others. Although, even if you are not able to do this, but at least
가능해야 그게 됩니다.
you should be able to remember up to a certain extent. Then only it's possible.
논리적 논파술인데 요거는
The rational debate in Tibetan tradition
기본적인 교육 과정으로 정선되고
is
있습니다.
still the very basic training method in Tibetan religion, in Tibetan Buddhism.
넘어갔어요. 듣는 자의 세 번째 허물은 동기와 관련한 것입니다.
The listener's third fault
즉,
is
돌 담은 그릇과 같습니다. 가르칠 때
it's almost like it's like a cup that has a poison.
중요합니다.
You should have a proper motivation when you are listening.
법을 수행하는 모든 행위에는 바른 동기를 가지고
For all the
있습니다.
acts of
이게 뭐냐,
listening to
돌을 담은
Buddhism or
그릇이다.
practicing
그렇게
Buddhism,
얘기하는 것은
you should have a
뭐냐면
proper motivation.
이 지금 법문을 하는 법을 설하는 것은 부처님이 설하는 것은 무슨 시비를 하고 또는 무슨 지식을 전달하기 위해서 하는 것이 아니고 또는 이건 밥벌이를
This
하기 위해서 하는
act
것도
of
아니고
me
또는
conveying the message of Buddha is not for not to earn money or not to earn bread, but it's also not with an improper intention. This kind of people who might say that like, oh, I want to listen to what the person is saying, I want to go there to fight. You should not have this kind of thing, but you should have a proper motivation. Under the motivation to practice your ascetic practice, but if you do not do that, then there's no benefit to yourself. If you have a sense of poison within you, then it's almost like putting food in the plate that's with the poison. You will be raining the whole food.
통일교 같은 경우는 불교의 유식론을 갖다가 전부 다 갖다 붙여놨다고. 그 유식론도 제대로 붙인 게 아니라 전부 다 지한테 맞는 것만 갖다 끌어다 붙여놨어. 그는 나무 법문을 갖다 제대로 이해도 못.
In some Buddhism, in Tongyurgyo, they have only taken ideologies, and it's almost like they have taken what's only beneficial to them, and they have also not taken them as they are, but they have taken it for their own benefit, and so it's only helpful to them in their ways of doing useless things, or only in becoming more selfish. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of cases like that.
여기에서 바른 동기라는 것은 어떤 것이냐면
Here, when we say a proper motivation, this means since Buddha's laws are all talking about saints and they all talk about how to become a saint, and the motive here lies in freeing yourself or escaping from the agony and also your greed, and that also leads to your happiness. So we are learning method to become happy, and if you learn with that motivation, then the path seems very clear. But here we had institution today. He had some center and he killed several people because they were not following him, and he died in prison.
그날 아마 전국에 뭐 한 달에
Once
한
I
번씩
saw
모이는
that bus,
사람
the center's
식구가
bus,
그런 것이.
standing
근데
on
그게
the
팜플렛으로
way,
지나가니까 하나 줘. 그래서 내가 받아서 이 사람 뭔 소리 하나
and they
보니까
gave me a
뭐라
pamphlet.
그러냐.
And when I saw it,
그 안에 그 성철 스님께서 영원히
inside there was
불생불멸하고
written that
나도
Venerable
영원히
Songchul
안 죽는
spoke
법이 있다라고 성철 스님께서
that
말씀하셨거든요.
there is a
성철 스님
way
사진
never to die.
밑에가 성철 스님 법문을
And they
갖다
put the
거두정리하고
picture of
앞에다
Venerable
떼버리고 뒤에
Songchul,
떼버리고
and
그
without context, they only put
반야신경 나오는 우리
that
반야부에 나오는 불생불멸 이건 뜻도
line.
모르고 갖다 붙여 불생불멸을 한다 그러니까 불멸이 안 죽는 거잖아. 그럼
The line that
물생도 떼버리고
the line that says
딱 해가지고 영원히 안 죽는 법이 있다고 성철
we never
스님께서도
die.
성철 스님도 얘기했다고. 그러니 여러분 나를 믿고 따르고 내가 손바닥에서 이렇게
Thus follow me, and from my palm
기운의 이슬이 나온 이걸 여러분이
you can feel the grace of God. And if you get this spirit, then you will not die, but he died sooner.
그래 그건 독이란 말이야 독.
That is poison. So listening and editing others as per his intentions, it should not be done. It's almost like listening with poison inside of you. So you should, when you're listening, you should awaken what's in the inner you and listen. Just because there's poison, in order to dilute the poison, you put more food, more water, and that also becomes poison. If you clear out the poison and put food, then the food becomes medicine, but or else everything will turn into a poison. And also some says, you are a great orator, but I am not a speaker here. I'm not doing it with the purpose to become an orator. Training our harsh heart, and it should be with the motivation to train your harsh heart, and also the training harsh heart means you should be able to get rid of all the agony of life, or else even if you keep listening, no matter how much you listen, throughout the 1 hour of teaching, they only listen what is important or what is beneficial to them, only a small part of it. I was very surprised once. One monk came to listen to Dalai Lama's teaching, and I asked him after 4 days, were you able to listen to it carefully? And he said Dalai Lama is great, so I thought he listened to it, but he said he has sense in politics. So after 4 days, that's what he said, and so it becomes like if a cow drinks water, it becomes milk, and if a snake drinks water, it becomes poison. So when Mr. Zhang Zhu-young went on the Siberian by helicopter, then everything he saw was money. Trees seemed like money. Even the old refinery, everything was messy when they need this big pipe.
새 파이프를
then
요만큼
they could
잘랐으면
use
80%는 갖다 버린다는 거예요.
then they could use the
저것도 돈이고
previously
이래도
used one,
돈이고 나무도
but they
돈이고
were using the new ones.
심지어는
But
뭐
everything
가져왔느냐면
that he
거기에
saw, in his
호박
opinion,
묻혀있는 거.
everything looked like money.
호박.
Now, even he even saw like pumpkins.
소나무
Oh,
송나무 묻혀있는 게 막
the
돈이
gem
그냥
pumpkin there.
차라락 그러니까 이게 카메라에
In his
돈만
opinion,
차라락
everything looked
비치거든.
like money. So in camera, everything was taped as money.
나는 가서 봤으면 절터 이러고 지나갔어.
In my opinion, it all seemed like if I go there, it might seem like or every place is for
내 카메라는
monastery.
그것밖에 안 찍히겠지 이게. 응?
In my camera, that only that will be shot.
수익을 목적으로는 일반적인 배움이어서는 안 됩니다. 그러니까 이건 막 절에 가니까 뭐 아주 뭐 보살들이 뭐 그냥 우리 집 가게도 잘 와주고 그러시오 어쩌고 저쩌고
It shouldn't become a normal learning.
나중에 아주 머리 끄댕이
Like,
잡고 싸워.
if you have this kind of relation getting mixed, like since we met you in monastery, you should come to our restaurant to make ourselves. No, this kind of relations only causes arguments.
얘기 하나 있다 그래요. 얘가 누이 또 그래요. 서로 머리 끄집어 당기기 하자 그래요. 그러니까 정신이 하나도 없어.
So I went to a kindergarten once, and they wanted to. It was a joke that like let's fight pulling each other's hair, but since I don't have hair, they cannot.
자식들이 돈 때문에 부모 돈 뜯어먹으려고
When someone visited me, and the person
수단을 보니까 불이 와서 얘기를 하는 거예요.
the person was very heartbroken because the kids were fighting over the money, and so I told them, decide prior to your death, or else they will start fighting after your death.
수익을 목적으로 하는 일반적인 배움에서는 안 됩니다. 더불어 6가지 적절한 의도.
It shouldn't be a normal learning based on the benefits.
절대 법을 들으면서 자기가 안다는 자만하지 말아야 돼.
And you should never be proud of yourself, or you should never have the sense that you already know. You should never be proud of yourself.
지가 뭘 알고 있다. 알아도 내가 집에서 있는 데 감동받은 게 말이야. 그 내 톡을 옆에 사든 거 노수임 내가 얘기 안 했대요.
You should never be in vanity. That's what
한다는 거예요. 그 다람살라에서 남부로 기차 타고 다니면 3박 4일 내려가야 돼요. 돈도 없는 양반이.
I was very amazed at Tibetan Buddhists.
아, 이 꼴에 있는 수십 번 들었지 않느냐 그랬더니. 수십 번 들었어. 또 들어가시는 사람.
And because he was going to South India to listen to the teaching, and I asked him, did you listen very carefully before? And he was like, I listened to it more than 10 times, but it's he wanted to go there because he thinks that if when he listened to Dalai Lama's teaching, sometimes you are able to feel you're able to see what Dalai Lama has spoken, but you are not able to understand at the time. But new things they come to you.
희한하게도 달라이 라마께서 하신 말씀이 수십 번을 입버리는 법회를 들었는데 항상 새로운 말씀이 또 다른 차원의 새로운 말씀이 계속입니다. 그거는 지가 수행을 하고 있다는 뜻이기도 하고 수행을 하고 있으니까 공감을 순간에
That also means that person is studying hard, and that also means he has attained some sort of training. So what Dalai Lama has spoken gets whatever Dalai Lama has spoken, he's able to take it because he was able to practice on his own.
한국으로 다 있는데 한 번 들으면 쫙다 알아버리지.
There are so many things absent in Korean Buddhism too.
IQ 100도 안 되는 사람이 한 번 들으면 다 알아버리지 그걸 두 번, 세 번 들어야 될 필요 없어. 안 그래?
There are a lot of people who say that listening once is more than enough, but it isn't. You're only able to intake up to the amount that you have studied. So listening to it once is not enough.
설법자의 변화에 따라서 또 다르게 들리는 거야.
Depending on the change of the teacher or the change of you, the listener, new things will come to you. So you should never have vanity. Also, if you do not have a sense of seriousness or faith, then it is not as beneficial as they are. You only cross a bridge if you have a certain faith that the bridge will not fall while crossing. You cannot cross a bridge if you do not have a faith that the bridge will not fall down. And also, when you're on a cruise, if you think that the cruise ship will sink, then you cannot be on that cruise.
믿음에 대한 생각이 꼭 있어야 돼. 그거 없으면 안 돼.
So you should have a faith. You should have a faith, and also you should not be lazy. If you're lazy, then nothing will work out. There's only one thing that happens that is possible with being lazy. A thief can be lazy. A fighter should be lazy. This robbery, act of murder, swearing, all these things, you should be lazy. If you're lazy, then you will not feel like doing it. There's no need to do it swiftly.
외부 경기에 이끌리지 마라. 그럼 이를테면 누가 그러더라고.
Do not be stuck on the external boundaries.
거기에 사람이 대단히 많이 모였던데요.
Once someone told me there were so many people gathered there, so I said,
많이 모이는 데가 어디죠? 어디요?
do you know the place where houseflies gets most crowded? It's a dung.
사람이 거기에 어떤 사람이 모여서 어떤 짓을 하고 있는지를 봐야지. 거기에서 욕심이 많은 사람이
Likewise, you should see where people have gathered and for what they have gathered. But if they're gathered in area where it is not beneficial or where it's only for sins, act of sins, then it's nothing worse than it's nothing better than houseflies getting gathered around dung.
많은 사람이 뭐 요즘에 여론조사 해가지고 뭐 맨날 떠들어 샀대. 여론조사가 그 자칫 잘못하면 포퓰리즘에 빠지기 쉬워. 그러나 우리가 가라앉혀 놓고 보면
Even in politics, they consider this opinion poll very well, but sometimes opinion polls only cause formalism.
해야 된다고 여론 문매를 맞고도 하는 거거든. 그게 대통령이야.
Despite critics, a president should be able to do what he thinks is right. If we follow every opinion of all the citizens, then it is not proper. So, likewise, you should not be so shaken by external boundaries. Something like in winter it's cold, so I cannot come, and but in summer you cannot come because it's too hot, and in spring you cannot come because it's because you're busy. Even in fall you have to go pick up some wild vegetables, and you have to go to parlor, and you also have to take care of your grandchildren. And each time there will be excuses for you not being able to come to the teaching. You should concentrate in inner self. Each time you listen to this teaching, you should be able to observe your inner self, the speech, the hurt, and your consciousness that's arising. You should be able to look at it yourself.
가서 시비 걸으라고 한 게 아니고 지 개지키라고 해놓은 거야.
Even when we give you laws to follow, we are not asking you to go and check if others are following these instructions or not, but we are doing it for you. It's almost like these elementary school kids when you say close your eyes, but they check and see that person has eyes. But if your eyes are closed, then you are not able to see whose eyes are open or closed. It's because your eyes are open, you are able to see the others have their eyes open or not.
그렇지? 개를 쫓아니까 아이고 저것들이 개를 안 지켜서 내가 못 살겠네. 지나 잘 지키라 그래. 지가 잘 지키는 사람은 말 안 해.
You know, when sometimes I complain about other people not abiding rules and regulations of Buddhism, but you should be able to do it yourself. Those who are able to follow well, then they don't complain about others. And also, you should not give up because something doesn't work out while listening to the teaching or while taking your daily life. Sometimes people feel despair because your back hurts, so you cannot come to the teaching. In case like that, just bring a chair and sit there. And if your leg hurt, then you can stretch it out. No one says anything about it. There are some people who shouldn't. They are those who has no problem with their legs, but they just stretch it out and sit there proudly. Now, those people, they should not do that. Those I scold, but others I don't. It's much better to listen. Once someone said, I cannot come to temple. That person said, I ate a dog. And when she asked this performer, the super performer, she said, do not go. And so I told her, if you know that you have done the wrong thing, it's better to come and listen to Buddha's teaching. And she said she felt sorry for the Buddha's teaching. So I said, it's way better to come here. I think Buddha is already aware that you have eaten a dog. It's almost like you think they are not aware if you are sitting in your room and when you are not looking. It's a very funny thing. Even at those times, it's important to know that you have made a mistake.
그 림포체 한 분의 내 스승의 완전한 가르침에 이제 이런 얘기가 나와 있다. 이상의 허물을 여기
this saying is spoken in my great teacher Rinpoche.
적극적으로 가르침을 듣는 내용에 관한 것입니다. 그러니까 동기가 바로 듣는 것이 중요하다. 법문을 듣는 동기가.
So the motivation of listening to the teaching is important.
까밀러실의 수행 차제에 대한 본론으로 다시 돌아가겠습니다.
Now let's go back to the main topic of Kamlashila's stages of practice.
까밀러실라에게 영예로운 학자라는 적절한 칭호를 올렸습니다.
Tsongkhapa has given the title of Honorable Scholar to Kamlashila. Kamlashila has published left us a lot of books, but amongst them, the stages of practice and Jungron is the most representative books of him. Let's do under here today. And sorry, the Jungron is the fundamental wisdom of the middle way.